All right, now to other breaking news. One person is dead and two others are injured after, as you just heard about this a moment ago, a shooting at Old Dominion University. University officials say the gunman is dead. Authorities identify the suspect as Mohammed Jallow. He was convicted in 2017 for providing material support to ISIS and released from prison in 2024. He was a naturalized U.S. citizen from Sierra Leone. And federal court records show Jallow told confidential sources he had thought about carrying out an attack and knew how to use guns. Quote, during their meeting, Jallow also told the CHS that he often thought about conducting an attack and that he knew how to shoot guns. Jallow praised the gunman who killed 5 U.S. military members at a terrorist attack in Chattanooga, Tennessee in July 2015, and stated he had been thinking about conducting an attack similar to the November 2009 attack at Fort Hood, Texas, raising obvious questions about how this person remained a naturalized citizen in the United States. Let's bring in former acting ICE director and former federal prosecutor Jonathan Fahey. Jonathan, we were just talking about this yesterday. We were just talking about this process of who we bring into the country and naturalized citizens, and here we see, in this case, not an illegal immigrant, not a terrorist from overseas, but a naturalized American citizen today, apparently inspired by ISIS.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. And remember that Austin attack, I believe he was also a naturalized citizen
Yes.
from Sierra Leone as well. So it does go back to the broader point, which we talked about, is when we're bringing people in, just the fact that they come in legally doesn't mean it's helpful to the United States. And we clearly have not done a very good job screening people, because the most important thing is they don't harm us. And then the second most is they help us. But we certainly haven't gotten number one out of it. And the fact that this is 2 times in 2 weeks, there's a major problem that's a broader problem than just these 2 people.
Right. We're still going to, I believe the Austin shooter, if my memory serves, was Senegal, a naturalized citizen from Senegal.
My mistake.
That's okay. This is Sierra Leone. Here's a question for you, Jonathan, and we're going to have to learn more details about what exactly happened at Old Dominion. We don't have the date on where and when Mohammed Jallow was naturalized. But if someone were saying the things that he were saying and in prison and inspired and supported by ISIS, why was he naturalized, perhaps after that fact, or why wasn't he denaturalized if he had already been naturalized?
Right, that's a good point. I think the critical question is, when was he naturalized and what were his views before he was naturalized? And if they have evidence of these views before he was naturalized, that's where you could denaturalize somebody. But really the most important thing is getting people before they're naturalized, or actually before they even come in. But my guess is, and we don't know enough, but clearly he had been naturalized before the conviction in 2016, or they would have had part of that plea agreement would have been to have him removed at the end of his sentence. So right. It could have been, quite a long time. But I think to go back into this and to find out what's his history of these types of views and how it correlates to the time in which he was applying for naturalization, because there could be certainly a time that we could have prevented this back in the day. And certainly when we're naturalizing people now, we want to look at it to see can we prevent the next one of these, and it probably will result in preventing less people from coming in, because we just don't know.
Well, Jonathan, you know the process of this. It's on the screen right now. He was released from prison in 2024. Let's presume for the moment that he was naturalized much prior to going to prison or espousing these views. At the point that his views become well known, or even at the point where he goes to prison, should that not trigger the denaturalization process and then get him out of the country?
Yeah, you think, should it or could it, could he be denaturalized now? I don't know. For stuff that occurred after he was naturalized is it would be difficult. I don't know how you do it, but I think the thing you would do is retrospectively, you want to go back and see, all right, he had these views in 2015. He didn't probably just come up with them in 2015. So when was he naturalized? Who was he talking to? And can you make a case to denaturalize him? But really, again, sort of the biggest point is it is so hard to denaturalize somebody. And just how we see right now, just removing illegal aliens in this political climate with the Democratic Party it's so difficult to even take the criminals out. That's why you have to put the brakes need to be on the front door before people come in. And if you don't have the highest degree of confidence, the simple answer should be you don't come in. And we've made this mistake because, like we talked about the other day, the priority has been what's in the best interest of the immigrants, what's been in the best interest of some businesses, and there really hasn't been what's in the best interest of United States citizens before Donald Trump in 2016, where he kind of blew the lid on this whole scheme going on where the American citizens and their well-being was shut out of the immigration debate.
Right. Well, this is two examples here of a naturalized citizen now between Austin and Old Dominion using odious and poisonous views to murder American citizens. And it obviously, to your point, raises questions about who we bring into the country, a very big point, but also why these people remain in the United States of America. We'll wait to see who the suspect is and what his motivation might have been in West Bloomfield. Jonathan Fahey, thanks for being with us here today.
Thank you.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.